Hello to Ashton Wharf. Well, not quite Ashton Wharf. This is a bit of a tutorial that was requested by a subscriber. He wanted to know how to get from this to this, as he was a bit hesitant about painting. So I said I would make a short video on my methods of painting. Now, we all have our own methods of painting. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong, but this is my way of doing it. Others all have different ways, but I'll show you my way. What do you need to start with? I'll pan back a bit. You don't need all this lot what I've got here. I've been collecting paints for years because I'm a miniature painter as well as model railway, and so some of these paints were 10, 12 years old. I've copied them over the years. And that's because I need a big range of colours for the miniature soldiers that I paint. But you'll only need a fraction of these. You'll need a couple of brushes, a large one, a medium one, and a fine detail one. You'll get by without that. And if you use acrylic paint, you only need a pot of water, just plain water. You don't have to mess about with thinners or, white spirit, any burner, none of that. You don't want no stinky stuff in the house. Just plain water. You need some basic things like I've got in that cup over there. You can't really see that sort of, but I've got some files and clippers and the usual things you would expect. Now, there's various paints you can use. As I've said already, there's acrylics, which are these over here in these dropper bottles, these pointy top ones. Over there at the front, if I zoom in a bit, these are contrast paints at the front there. Now, contrast paints, I won't go into it in great detail, but don't use them because you need a bit of experience for them. As far as I'm concerned, you can only paint them onto a white undercoat, because it's different to other paints. It's more like a wash or a stain. And if you make a mistake, you can't go over it with another colour. You've simply got to go back, put white back on it, and start again. So avoid them, and apart from that, they're pretty damn expensive. You can see here that these figures, hopefully you can if I'm getting shot. I've done the horse flesh on this Etruscan Roman allied cavalrymen. They were done in contrast paints. It's only had one coat, it needs another touch up in the second coat. You see, I've tried to avoid all the other areas where I can, try not to touch too much. But I will be using some standard acrylic paints and some of the finer points anyway, so it doesn't matter if I go over a little bit. But they are good, but you have to have white or grey white primer. But you don't need to worry about that. So let's get rid of it. Now, primers of choice. I like to you can use an airbrush to prime. A lot of people do. You can use rattle cans. They're widely available in Halfords in the UK, they do a massive range. As do quite a number of hardware type shops, Wilco's, all that type of store where you can get rattle cans. They do the job, they're quick, but I'm not 100% happy with them. It's probably the way I use them. I never seem to hold the can the right distance away, so I end up with like a powdery surface and finish. Plus, you can't get into hard to reach areas, so you end up having to touch it up with hand primer anyway. So I just give up and do. Now, I'm not in a rush, I'm not in a competition, and if you're painting, you're not in a rush, you take your time. It's patience, that's what it's all about. So these are my two primers of choice. You can see I've got the white one there for the soldiers, and for instance the life belts. I would paint the life belts white to start with, because then half the job's done, isn't it? But the colour of choice is black, and the reason for that is that it does a lot of the job for you. It does, especially on the soldiers, but it does on these as well. For instance, if I pick up one of these wheelhouses, the windows, if I paint this all black primer, the windows have already got a coat on. All I have to do then is dry brush that with a light grey, just to make it look like there's a The door would be painted, I just have to go around the outside edge. The hull of the vessel, I mean, if you want, the hatch, where are you? The hatch there with over the fish hold. You could leave that black as well if you wanted, that saves you paint. And also finer points, like where them cleats are, where the mooring lines and things would go. Now that's going to be a right pain to get down behind that. You're going to have one colour for the ship side, a different colour for the deck, and another different colour for the cleats. You know, don't agonise over something like that. Just do what you can reach. Nobody's going to look at it and say, oh, I loved your layout, but I noticed the bottom millimetre of the cleats at the rear of the trawler wasn't painted. Cost the bloody not. If you can't see it, neither can any bugger else. So don't fret over stuff like that. You do what you can do, what you can reach. Because if otherwise, I'll tell you just go backwards and forwards and you'll touch the other bit and then you have to go back, touch the other bit. And it just goes on and on. You'll drive yourself mad. You'll end up throwing the thing at the bloody wall. So don't do that. Now, putting on this primer, I'm a hairy stick man. I like to use a brush. I've used them all these years. I've been using a brush for 60 odd years. It's my preferred method. Yes, it's slower, but as I said, I'm not in a rush. I like brush priming, and I'll do that. Now, what I'll do is, I'm not going to bore you rigid by making you watch me paint primer on these things. So what I'll do is, I'll cover them in primer, and then I'll come back to you. And I will do the accessories as well. You can see the nets there. I've done them in a green. There's fish boxes with the fish in. The hatch, actually that hatch, probably could have done with a second coat looking at it now, close, especially under the camera. But it'll do. You've got you see the window? On this one I did grey. So I did a light grey just to give it like a reflection. We've got the red navigation light for port, and of course a green navigation light for starboard. Some tyres on the sides and on the bow to stop any damage. And the mast, and the only reason I did the mast red was I did the deck cleats red, and a big blob came out the jar. Well, I wasn't going to waste it, so it ended up with a red mast. It was originally going to have a blue one, but never mind, it does. So that's it. So I'll get some primer on these and some of the accessories as well, and then I'll come back to you. One important thing I didn't mention is the preparation of these resin pieces. The first thing I did was clean off any flash or mould lines, and to be honest, on these models from any scale, there's virtually none. But use a file or some sandpaper, some wet and dry, just to clean that off if there is any. After that, you put it in a soapy bath. About 10 minutes, leave it to soak. Then I go back with an old toothbrush and give them a scrub. And then I simply take them out there, I put them on a piece of kitchen towel and leave them to air dry. And then once they're fully air dried, because now we've got rid of all the any residue from the moulding process and any other bits of dirt and grime that I may have been on, they're now as pristine as you can get them. So you don't want to be putting your fingers on them, because your fingers, obviously, you've got oils and sweats and things. You don't want to put that onto the model, because the paint will pick that up and it won't adhere very well. So I pick it up with a piece of, again, you can use a bit of cloth or anything, piece of kitchen roll, and then I glue it on, not glue it, see there's blue tack here on this bottle top. You see how I can move it around, even upside down, because it's a nice big blob, even though this is quite a heavy piece, it gives me a good handle, and I don't have to touch the model. So as you can see, I'm making a start with the first coat. Now it's going to need 2 coats. 2 thin coats are better than one. Don't try and blather it on. Just 2 thin coats. Remember, this is a patient job. You're not in a rush, you're not in a race. Just take your time. I always start with the inside. You don't have to, but I do, just so that I've got the inside out of the way, then I know on the outside I'm not having to reach inside anymore. And of course I'm not going to paint the bottom. So I thought I'd better mention that about the preparation and how to mount them, etc. So I'll come back to you again in a bit. Right, we've got our first coat of black primer on. The inside and outside of the holes and the wheelhouses. I've also took the opportunity to, in the background there you can see some of the accessories that will eventually go on the boat. They're stuck in blue tack as well, they'll get painted. Now you'll see on the front here, see here, the tyre, just as I was painting it, it fell off. Sometimes that happens, but don't pick it up. Don't be tempted to pick it up and try and stick it back into the blue tack, because all you'll do, you'll get, in this case, black primer all over your fingers. Then you'll touch these bases and it'll be all over them, and then you'll touch your brush and it'll be all over the handle of your brush, and before you know it, you'll have black primer every bloody where. Just leave it where it falls, unless it's in somewhere you can't leave it. I mean, it's fine there on this worktop. And I'll just leave it until it dries along with the rest of it. I'm not going to mess about with it now, it can sit there. I'm not going to get blathered trying to pick that up. So that's about as far as I can really go today, because I need this to harden off and cure overnight. And then tomorrow I shall come back and I'll give them, I'll give all the bits a second coat. I won't show that, but what I will do is show you when I've actually finished the 2 coats. And then we'll go from there, because then everything will be nice and dry, because remember that'll be another night's drying. And then we'll get on to the fun bit, the actual putting some colours on. So I hope that's been a help. I don't know if to make this a series or just to tackle them all together. Anyway, we'll see. We'll worry about that later. Okay, thanks for watching, and speak to you in the next part.